Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could teach the gullible to never be so comfortable with lies they eat like comfort food, to disregard the bogus claims and pseudoscientific claims? Can you imagine just how much indeed the world would change? No more political predators playing on the populace with ilkas and plots to shift and kill metropolis. No more villains with the title in the Bible holding phony temper Bibles like the stuff they teach is vital. Imagine it was normal to have to prove a claim you make, and folks really feel ashamed expressing content that was fake. It's not to say we never make mistakes, it's just to say we go out of our way to show the evidence it takes.
Remain skeptical while you travel the road, the reason stay strapped with logic and facts. That's what it is, yo. Keep reality intact to help the truth grow. Question every claim, especially the ones you believe in. Remain skeptical while you travel the road, the reason.
Hi, welcome to Road to Reason, the Skeptic's Guide to the 21st Century. I'm your host, Kayla Turzak, and this is my co-host,
Brendan McAuliffe.
All right, so you can always watch us live. If you're not in the area, you can watch us live on Ustream on Sundays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're in the Fairfax County area, you can watch us on channel 36, same time. All of our shows will be uploaded to YouTube on our YouTube channel, Road to Reason, within the week. Please visit our Facebook page if you want to know about our upcoming shows and hear our announcements and updates. Today we are going to be interviewing Anthony Magnabosco, a YouTuber with about 11,000 subscribers and 260 videos. Anthony is a secular activist and speaker. He has taken up the call of the Manual for Creating Atheists by Peter Boghossian. This book is not about creating godless heathens. Rather, it reviews the Socratic method and shows us how we can honestly and kindly help other people review their own beliefs and think about their beliefs in a way that they might not otherwise. I wanted to make the announcement that Road to Reason is coming up shortly. The Reason Rally is actually coming up shortly. Reason Rally is a celebration of a fact-driven public policy, the values of critical thinking, voting power of secular Americans. The rally will be held on June 4th, 2016 at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., along with a number of other events at nearby hotels. We will actually be hosting a workshop on June 5th from 1:15 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. at the Washington Court Hotel. And during that, we'll be talking to different people about our show, about being involved in secular media, talking about if you wanted to get some advice on how to get involved in your local public access or how to start a podcast in your local public radio. And there's just a bunch of different ways that we can help you out and talk to you about getting involved in media and secular activism. All right, yeah. So for the news.
All right, so three Spanish journalists were finally returned home after being kidnapped in Syria. They were returned home about 1 in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, and they were captured about 10 months ago in Syria when they were reporting for a local Spanish outlet. And they finally got returned home after a long stint in captivity. They were captured by the Al-Qaeda branch in Syria. Not much is known about the captivity itself or why they were released or anything like that, as it's a fairly brand new breaking story. But it's finally good to see the good guys be able to come home to their families.
That's really cool.
Again, jumping on the journalist segment, 2 journalists were just sentenced to prison time in Turkey. They were accused of, revealing state secrets? Although that's kind of what a journalist does. They report on state activities, but, you know. So they were sentenced to one of them was sentenced for 5 years, the other one was sentenced to 5 years and 10 months. And what was been going on is Turkey's been cracking down a lot on journalists and any sort of critical saying about the government or their president. Unfortunately, one of the journalists, right before the sentencing, was attacked and shot at by an unnamed gunman. Luckily, the gunman was captured and the journalist was unharmed. But it's a really disturbing and troubling kind of incident going around Turkey right now. They're closing down a lot of newspapers. A lot of long-standing critics are kind of just going underground, not talking. A German comedian is sentenced. They're attempting to throw him in jail for cracking a few jokes. It's a fascinating kind of free speech argument, and that's the trouble with it, is the fact that secularists and any sort of since the state and church were not separated across the country, across the world, often until recently, when people started saying that, hey, this is not cool, people were being thrown in jail, tortured, punished, killed for just saying, like, you chill out, guys. On a completely different note, Satan lookalike teamed up with the former satanic band AC/DC, and a lot of fans are upset. So AC/DC has been kind enough to give refunds for anyone who bought tickets before Axl Rose joined and replaced their frontman Brian Johnson. There's a lot of internal music drama going around about that. I would not be wanting to see Axl Rose perform with AC/DC, but I'm more of a AC/DC purist, if such a thing exists. You know, interesting stuff going down.
All right, I really appreciate being able to talk about journalism specifically, because there is a lot of places in the world where people aren't allowed to speak up against and call out authorities.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like you were saying before, throughout history, a lot of secular-minded people were not in authority, and they were the ones who were silenced by not being able to speak out and have their freedom of speech respected. And that's the value in what I feel like my country has, championed in a lot of ways, or at least attempted to champion, this idea that you can say whatever you would like, barring actually inciting violence against other people, as long as you don't incite that violence, in order to make sure that everybody is able to have their rights respected. And
yeah, that was actually one of the themes for last week's discussion that I had with Marcelo. We were talking about the murder of the Bangladeshi bloggers for blogging, and they ended up being hacked to death. And although that's not the government wasn't strictly going out and killing people, it was this okayed vigilante justice because they spoke out against Islam.
And their government didn't do anything about it, right?
No.
They didn't go after, have a task force to actually enforce whatever version of freedom of speech that they might have on.
No. There's no follow-up investigation, no actual closure to any of this stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like I said before, that's one reason why these issues, whenever any journalist in the world, no matter what they're saying, is persecuted for what they're saying. I think that this is something that religious groups should be concerned with.
Oh, yeah.
Because, minority religious groups within certain areas, like if you're a Christian in a Muslim area, or if you're, gay in a very Christian area, for instance, in the small areas of certain parts of Africa that do actually still persecute gays heavily and kill.
Or an atheist almost anywhere. Kind of comes down.
Except for the free, the Western world. We're pretty lucky. We're pretty lucky. We get to say pretty much public access. We get to say what we want.
We have a TV show. They get a jail cell.
Absolutely. All right. So again, you can join us at our Road to Reason workshop on June 5th. 1:15 through 2:45 p.m. at the Washington Courthouse. As of right now, we're actually going to go into a couple PSAs that we usually run. All right.
This is Hemant Mehta of FriendlyAtheist.com, and I invite you to join me at the Reason Rally in Washington, D.C. at the Lincoln Memorial on June 4th, 2016, celebrating the fact that we understand what most of America doesn't, that no God is watching over us, and it's up to us to make the world a better place. Check out reasonrally.org to see a list of all the events taking place that weekend. It's historic, it's free, and it's gonna be amazing.
Good. Homemade noodles. Marty, stop it. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. It reminds me, I've been thinking maybe we should try a new form of birth control. I heard about this one, it's called the IUD, intrauterine device. Or we could try the patch on your arm. Actually, I think that one goes in your butt.
Bedsider.org has birth control information and a lot more. And it's...
What do you think then? Arm or the butt?
There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
This is Richard Dawkins. Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humor, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait. Look at them now on Facebook and YouTube, and remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
I'm Paul Sheehan, executive producer of Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, and I'm inviting our viewers to join us in Washington, D.C. on June 4th at the Lincoln Memorial for Reason Rally 2016. If you care about public access television, freedom of speech, and you feel that atheist and skeptical thinking people should have a voice, then you will definitely want to be at Reason Rally. The day after, on June 5th, Road to Reason will be holding a workshop to discuss how to promote atheism and skepticism through public access television and through the internet. Make sure to visit our Facebook page for updates as to when and exactly where that will be held. See you at Reason Rally.
Hi, welcome back to Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century. Again, I'm your host, Kayla Terzak, my co-host,
Brendan McAuliffe.
All right, so today we are going to be interviewing Anthony Magnabosco. I hope I said that right. He's a YouTuber who occupies a niche market within the YouTube atheist community. On his channel, he records himself having conversations with average people about their deeply held beliefs, whether spiritual or secular. And to help them interrogate whether they, interrogate the method that they use to come to the conclusions that they have. Thank you for coming on our show. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Kayla, and thank you, Brendan. It's so nice to be here with you.
All right, so today we wanted to look at two of your videos. I've edited them down highly, so if there's anything within those videos that you find isn't true to the actual conversation, like if you remember that they said something and you want to present their views more accurately, just let me know, because we don't want to incorrectly show somebody, saying things that they don't actually say.
I had the opportunity to watch your edits, and they are a great representation of the conversation. So I have no qualms at all about the edits that you've made. I think it'll be extremely representative of the talks that we had.
All right, thank you very much. Before we watch these two videos, I would like to know, just 3 minutes maximum, how you got involved in such an interesting hobby.
It all started after reading Peter Boghossian's book, A Manual for Creating Atheists. I read it and thought, this is pretty cool, and if this can work, this might be the thing that the atheist movement needs to help the people that we love, that we know as friends, family, etc., and help them reflect on the beliefs that they hold. And I remember shaking after reading the book, thinking, I've got to give this a try. So I went out with my camera and I started documenting my attempts from the very first day. And you can see the progression of how I moved along with it. I started out very rough, and I think I've gotten better over the years. I've been doing this for 2.5 years now. And I absolutely love doing it because you can see the reaction of people after even a 5-minute talk. They love the conversation, they love thinking about their beliefs, and they're often eager to talk to me again. And it's kind of taken off. Like you mentioned at the start, I have a YouTube channel. There's quite a few people watching, and mimicking the approach, and even finding new ways to go out and do it. There's a community that's developing, not just around my videos, but around Peter's book. And it's taking off. It's getting noticed in the atheist community and elsewhere too, which is so encouraging to see.
All right, there is a manual that I saw on, there is some different groups that you can get involved in. I don't know if you ever want to plug those, you can at the very beginning, very end, but I did come across a manual that you're creating with a couple other people in order to show people how to go through the process of street epistemology, the way that you do street epistemology. I was wondering if you could briefly describe the Socratic method and as you use it in your videos.
Okay, sure. Just a point of correction on the guide. It's not something that you're right. There were a group of people that put that together, but it's not so much based on my approach. It's based on feedback from hundreds of people that are out there doing these types of things, having these types of conversations, and taking Boghossian's book to the next level of, okay, we've implemented this, we're getting feedback from our failures and successes, and here's what works. So yeah, that guide is excellent. And you wanted me to cover the Socratic approach?
Yeah, just briefly, 1, 2, 3 step if you can. If not, just let me know. We can go over it a little bit more in depth later.
Oh no, sure, I'll cover that. One of the first most important things is you want to be talking to a willing party, somebody that is honest and open about evaluating their beliefs. And then it goes just from there. So if you can find somebody that's willing to talk to you about a deeply held belief, something that informs them on a near daily basis, that's good. And listening to why they believe what they believe, and then asking questions. Can you tell me why you think that that's true? And repeating it back too. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that the main reason you believe that this is true is because you've read it in this book? And listening, pausing, and giving the person a chance to think about their belief and then verbalize it back to you, because sometimes when they tell you what they believe, it might be the very first time that they have actually thought about why they've held the belief in the first place. So it's a very friendly approach. It's not debate, it's listening, it's respectful, it's sincere and authentic, and it's powerful. In a 3 or 4 or 5 minute talk, sometimes a belief that a person has held their entire life, they may start to wonder, is this thing really true? So it's an incredible approach.
All right, so we're going to take a look at your first video and just talk about a couple points that I saw in the video, and after we've asked a couple questions, if you have any last thoughts on that video, we would love to hear it. So if we could roll the first video, Kiana?
How sure are you that the God exists on a scale from 0 to 100?
I'm going to go with an 80. Without a doubt in my mind, I believe that God is real and He's there and everything like that, but then there's some people where there'll be 100 because they're the people that have had those miracles happen to them.
What would cause you to drop to the 5?
Something to happen for me to stop believing in God. I guess that'd be me dying and not going to heaven, like just nothing happening. But I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you that, because I think my faith and belief is pretty solid, and like there's nothing that can change it.
What is faith?
I don't know. It's just like believing without question.
Do you believe in anything else without question besides the God?
No.
If believing without question was a reliable way to know that something was true, to the 80% confidence, why aren't you using it here at school? Did you say you have an exam? Are you going?
You're going to take a math quiz.
Yeah. If you had just used faith and believed without question that you were going to pass the quiz, and not study or do anything, how do you think that you would do on the quiz?
I would not do well at all.
What do you find so reliable about using faith to be 80% confident that the God exists, just believing without question? Yet you don't use it for other aspects of your life, like an important quiz, for example.
I do use it in everything, but not in a way that I'm completely depending on it. Like, all right, I'm gonna go jump off this bridge or go skydiving and just, think I'm gonna survive.
Do you think believing that the God exists without question by using faith is the most reliable way to know that something is true?
For each individual person, it will for them, but for others it may not.
But people are coming to all sorts of different God conclusions when they use faith, not the same one that you're coming to. And I think you were kind of hinting at that when you said, well, it's up to the individual.
Yeah, if you have faith in something else, there's really nothing I can do to really alter your faith in that one thing.
Like, if your God existed, shouldn't everybody be able to use faith to reliably get to that same God?
I'm going to answer your question with yes.
Okay.
But because I believe kind of all the religions are kind of pointing at the same God, they just have different views of it.
I'm going to use an extreme example here. The fellow that's in Afghanistan right now, and he believes that if he detonates a bomb or something, and he's, has 72 virgins waiting for him, and he's using faith, he's believing without question, he's ultimately going to get to the same God that you believe in and use faith to get to?
No, he's not going to get anywhere. Because the God...
But he would look at me and say, I'm using faith, Anthony, and I know that it's true.
Yeah.
How could a method for arriving at a truth be reliable if the conclusion varies from person to person to person to person to person to person to person?
Yeah. I don't know.
Thank you for your time. It was really a pleasure.
All right. I really liked that video. I really felt like he was honest towards the end, really saying, I don't know. It seemed like he wanted to really think about it. So the first thing you do, and I edited it out, is flag them down in a really friendly way, have a friendly chat about kind of what they're doing there, and explain to them what you're doing. The first thing that really strikes me is how similar this method is to what I used to call reaching out in the church that I used to be a part of. Me and a friend who follow you get a little bit uneasy with just the idea of interrupting somebody's life to sit there and talk to them about what they believe, because it seems so similar to what we were involved in when we were involved in that church. How do you justify the need to do this?
Well, that clip would be a good example. The last 20 seconds of it, the gentleman says, "That was a great talk. If I see you again, I definitely want to meet and talk with you again." So when I get feedback like that, any hesitation about interrupting somebody's day or maybe bothering them or something like that goes out the window when I get that feedback of, I really enjoyed that talk. So that's a big part of it. The other thing I want to be very clear on is that in order to perform street epistemology, you do not have to go out on the street and flag people down. I'm of a very, very tiny percentage of the thousands of people that are doing street epistemology that would feel comfortable going out on the street and asking some random person to stop and talk. I like doing it because I want to perfect the approach, but I also want to show people. You mentioned so many subscribers that are watching this. There are so many atheists that would never feel comfortable doing it, but enjoy learning the technique for myself. So, I completely understand that there's that perception, but I think it's a price. Well, it's a price that I'm willing to pay because I can see the benefits when I hear of somebody that is they're sitting at a car wash and somebody mentions Jesus. Hey, can I talk to you about Jesus? They're more prepared because they've read Bogosian's book, they've watched a few of my videos, and they're ready to go. So I'll take that heat if that's what it takes, but honestly, I don't mind it, and the majority of the people that I do end up speaking with love the talks as well.
Yeah, and it's not like they get to the end of the talk and they say, "How dare you?" It's a lot of people that I've spoken to using these methods have, not necessarily walked away changing their minds about what they believe, which is not necessarily the point, but they've walked away thinking, I actually have to think about this, and they can go home and have those tools. So if they ever need those tools, they have them.
I like to tell people these days that I'm a stay-at-home dad, but I also put pebbles in people's shoes. And that's what these talks are. I'm not expecting a huge deconversion right there on the spot, but I am hoping to impart the gift of doubt to people that hold beliefs that they're so certain that they're true. And if I can do that, I see that as a success, and I honestly feel that there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I would encourage anyone that's interested to learn more about it and go to the web page or the Facebook page or that type of thing. The resources are out there for you.
Yeah, I guess my favorite part is that you asked that question, why. It's that incredibly piercing and incredibly it digs right into the very basis of that idea. And you make sure you make sure that the people you talk to define their terms, so you guys are on like a good playing field. For me, it's a really good way to keep people also accountable to those ideas. Is there any other benefits you see in that definition of terms?
I love the idea of letting the person that I'm speaking with even choose the topic these days. For example, I might say, do you have 5 minutes to chat about a deeply held belief? It could be politics, ghosts, magic, a God belief, prayer. You pick the topic and we'll go. And then if they do, then we'll start talking, and I'll let them define the terms. It's not so much important what I think the terms are, definitions. I want them to feel comfortable explaining to me what they believe and why. So I'll let them define the terms, but I'm simply asking questions to uncover the reliability of the reasons why they're holding the belief. Another big difference between myself and what you might classify as street preacher or something is, I'm not saying, hey, come over here, I have the truth, and it's so important that I tell you what it is. I'm asking, what do you believe and why? Because I don't even know what the truth is. I'm not pushing a methodology or a belief system. I honestly want to know why you think what you believe is true, because I might want to believe it. But if it's not true, or if it doesn't appear that the method you use to get to the belief is true, then I'd love to have a chat with anybody about that.
I edited out the entire beginning of the video where he talks about miracles and about how that's why he believes what he believes. So eventually you got to, by asking questions, you got to the point where he admitted, or he realized, that really he was having faith in miracles. He was actually basing everything on faith. So how important is it to get to faith? Because I've noticed that as a theme throughout your videos, that ultimately most of these people get to, oh, I just have faith in it.
Typically, yes. Most believers, even those that say, I believe this because I have a good reason or I have evidence, I read it in the book, the prophecy, prayers came true, miracles, life after death experiences, almost always it comes down to faith. And Boghossian's very clear in his book to explain that when people use faith as a method to know something, and lots of people do, that's when the conversations can get extremely interesting, and that's the point where you can help somebody. When somebody finally expresses that, you know what, now that we've talked for 10 minutes, I believe this because of faith. Don't give up on them. You're very close to helping them see that, based on their definition, faith may not be a reliable way to know what you think you know.
So you zero in on the idea of faith after that, once they've actually stated that.
I like to go wherever they take me. I don't like to say, hey, I'm having 5-minute chats about why you're using faith to believe your God is true. No, take me on your path, take me on the journey that you've used to know what you know. When they say faith, I'll ask them for their definition, and then we talk about the reliability of it. But yes, when it comes to these supernatural beliefs, almost always faith is the culprit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it seems these conversations get really personal, because I mean, since we're all talking about like their own personal beliefs and their own personal faiths, it becomes sort of like an identifier to themselves, really. And do you ever come across that wall? Because I was looking up the definition of faith the other day, and someone said, the question really comes across my mind as saying, but that's not how like so-and-so defines faith. Because everyone has their own personal God, they all then have their own personal words, really, the meaning they take from a particular word, especially a loaded one like faith. How do you kind of, how do I want to say this? how would you define faith?
Well, my definitions of faith are a compilation of the near 1,000 conversations that I've had. It is typically belief without evidence, or hope, or wishful thinking. Matt Dillahunty calls it, how does he describe it? I think he calls it as an expectation, that you're expecting something to happen when you're not really sure that it will. It doesn't really matter what my definition is, because I'm not the one having the conversation. I'm not the one holding a belief because I'm using faith. I'll go and take whatever definition a person has and just roll with it. And you did mention the personal aspects of this. These types of conversations, they get emotional for myself and the person that I'm speaking with. I'm going to be releasing a video here in a few days where it was with an older woman that was absolutely certain that a butterfly landed on her shoulder and that it was her deceased husband saying hello. Well, where do you go from that? Those are some tricky situations. But if you stay focused on the method and help the person distance themselves from the belief so that they can objectively look at it, which is what the Socratic approach of street epistemology is all about, you can uncover quite a bit as to why that person thinks it's true, or the method they use to get there, by just asking these friendly questions in a way that doesn't shut them down or make them get defensive, which is a phenomenal thing.
Well, it's really easy not to get defensive when you know that somebody's listening to you. And that's why I appreciate the approach, because you let the other person lead. You really are trying to have a conversation with them and try to listen to why they believe what they believe. So you can ask them questions about it. Because like, you can't really, for instance, when in the video where Anthony started talking about all religions kind of pointing towards the same God, that very much surprised me. That's not the kind of Christian I would have thought at the very beginning. He seemed so confident about this idea of God and being a Christian, that and miracles, promoting that in my head, I wouldn't have thought, like, he probably believes that all roads lead to the same God. And it was just very interesting to watch him process through that information out loud, when it didn't seem like he had actually done that himself in the future. But if you hadn't been listening, it might never have gotten there, even.
Right, and that conversation was a little unique in that when he came out and said, no, it's the ISIS member that is also using faith is not really coming to the same God that I am. It's not uncommon for me to hear people say, yeah, he's really praying to the same God and he's using faith to the same God, but it's really just all the same God, and everyone has their own truth. I'm starting to see a lot of this relativism, that people seem to be confusing this idea of everyone has a right to believe in what they want, and everything that these people are believing are all true. And that's somewhat a disturbing development that I'm noticing, particularly with younger college students, it seems, although it's not uncommon for me to see this in older people, that truth can be dependent from person to person, and that's what I'm seeing, that there's less of a reluctance to objectively look at your belief to see if it's true, and more of this passive, let's just say everyone has their truth and I don't want to ruffle any feathers and we'll just go for it. And that as a skeptic and an atheist, that is something that I have a hard time accepting.
If you think about it, that in and of itself is a claim. If somebody is saying that all truths lead to the same place, that everybody has their subjective truth and they're all true, that is a claim that you can use the Socratic method, use street epistemology to question and get them to actually see the contradictions in that. And that's what I thought was very interesting, because you didn't finish with talking about faith necessarily. You finished with talking about his other claim about all religions leading to the same place. And,
that's a good point.
And it's just very interesting how all these methods can test pretty much any claim.
Oh my goodness, that's the cool thing about street epistemology, is that you can use it for any claim. My kids say that they want to get another dog. It's on. We can have a nice Socratic conversation about why they think that that's the case. So you don't have to just use it for God beliefs. We have another example coming up with a young woman that believes in karma. perfect for that. Perfect for politics. I see you can even use SE on the concept of SE. We've had some good conversations about why do we think that this is effective and so on. So like I keep saying, it's a great approach, and I urge anyone that is interested in that or intrigued with the videos that they're watching to please investigate it further.
All right, so we're actually going to go to that video that you mentioned. Her name's Kiana, is that correct? That was her name? All right. We're going to go ahead and take a look at that video and have a discussion about her conversation.
All right, my name's Anthony, and what I do is just flag down random people walking by to ask them if they hold any deeply held belief that they want to spend 5 minutes just chatting about, and I time it for 5.
Okay, let's go with karma.
Karma?
Yeah.
Okay. Before we even get any further, how do you define it? Because I want to make sure I understand it.
Good or bad, what you do could eventually come back to you.
Do you have a really vivid example of something that happened that you would say, karma?
Ooh. For me personally, I feel like whenever I say something mean about someone in my head, or if I speak it out in public, I'll like break out.
But if you don't say anything bad or think anything bad about a person, do you notice a difference in your complexion?
Honestly, like right now, my skin's on a good turn, and I haven't been thinking ugly thoughts. So.
Wow.
But that's just a small tidbit of something. Like if I litter, something bad, I have bad luck, so something bad will happen, and I'm just like, it's because I littered. I'm a strong believer in karma, and if I do something good...
You're really strong.
Yeah.
How sure are you that it's true? 0 to 100, 100%, all confidence, no doubt, 0%, all doubt?
I would say 82%.
82?
The two matters, yes.
Let's go to this example of you heading home, trash out the window. What would be an example of something happening that you would attribute to that action?
Something will break a nail.
Okay.
It's just little things. I'm just like, this is because I littered.
Okay. If you didn't litter, and you didn't think bad things about people or call them names or whatever, and you were just good for the rest of your life, would you never experience bad things?
So if I did something bad, something bad happened, I would attribute it to that thing, and I'd be like, I'm not living a good life.
Yes.
But if I lived a good life and something bad happened to me, I would have a better mindset towards it.
How do you differentiate karmic punishment from things happen?
If I did something bad and something bad happened immediately after, I feel like this has to correlate. Like, this is punishment. God's telling me don't do that again. Because I'm trying to think of anything bad that's happened and I feel like I've been doing good. I usually just brush it off. Maybe karma is not even just something bad happening to you, but just getting you in a space to make you live a better life in the end.
If you have no way of telling the difference between karmic punishment and things just happening, why believe in it at all?
I guess it's just something I live by. It's going to get me through.
Is 82% the most accurate spot to be on the confidence?
Now it isn't. Now you're going to make me go back home and think about this, and I'm like, I need to tell him. Okay.
I'll give you a card when we're done so you can
good.
read it again.
Because if I get it, I'm going to be like, okay, I have it. Let's see. I would say now I would go with 53 because I still believe it. I'm like, where am I going with this?
That was a really good one. That was actually my favorite one that you gave us to look at and edit. You made her give you an example of what she was talking about. What kind of questions do you ask once somebody has given you an example? Like we said before, sometimes they can be very personal. Are you careful about what kind of questions you ask, or are there specific lists of questions that you ask once someone's given you an example of what they're talking about?
That's a good question. I will ask them to give me an example. Sometimes the examples that I receive are extremely graphic or personal, or they'll just ramble on and give me example after example after example, and I'll have to try to reel it in. I like to just get an example to get a basic understanding of how they're using a word. Like a word like karma can mean 500 different things or more.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't matter how I view karma or the viewers view karma. How does this woman view karma? How does she define it? And let's do an example, because sometimes an example that somebody will give contradicts the definition that they've given. And again, that's the beauty of this technique, is that it helps that person realize that, oh, yeah, my definition of it doesn't match my best example of it. So what's going on here? But I love asking for examples, even though they can reveal a lot of personal things. And sometimes I'll even say, you don't have to get too personal, but just high level, what is your best example of why of this happening, whether it's prayer or miracle or karma for this example?
Yeah, I was having when I saw like a bunch of your videos in a row, like I'll do that with YouTube. Like I'll find someone new that I really enjoy, and then I'll watch all of them, and then be like angry that there's not a new thing coming out immediately. Same thing with Netflix. I know, it's bad of me. I was wondering, has anyone ever street epistemologized you? If that's a word. Have you ever thought of turning the camera on yourself or anything like that?
I haven't. I have turned the camera on myself to do a behind-the-scenes thing. Like if anyone really is interested in going out with a camera, I have a video explaining how I do that. So I'm walking around showing my equipment and things like that. I have had a few people use street epistemology on me regarding my position on eating meat, asking me how I know something can be true. What else? All sorts of topics. When you hang around a lot of people that are atheists, that are familiar with this approach, invariably it's just going to naturally come up, because you don't realize how many claims you make until you surround yourself with a lot of skeptics who will call you on it respectfully. And that's what this approach is all about. It's not backing down when you yourself make a claim. You can use this approach even in your own brain and ask yourself, why do I think it's true? And that's why I just love doing it and love trying to promote it as much as I possibly can.
So Kiana seems quite sure at the beginning, or near the beginning of the video, and she actually volunteers the fact that she's very sure, and you asked her percentage-wise, 1 to 100, how sure she is of her belief in karma. What's the benefit of doing this, and do you do it every time?
Okay, so the introduction of a belief scale, I'm not quite sure where it originated, if it was Boghossian's book or the private group, but somewhere along the line somebody suggested, hey, throw this on a scale to see where they are, because the conversation could be completely different if somebody says, I'm 20% sure karma is real or a God exists. But if they say I'm 80, 90, or 100%, then it's still completely different talk. So I actually love the scale, even though it could be a little redundant. When people do binge watch, for example, they might be like, oh, here we go again. Here's the 30 seconds of explaining what the scale is. But it is so important, whether you're having these conversations on the bus or with a family member over the holidays or whatever, try to get a sense of where the person is on the confidence of the belief that they hold. Get a numerical value. You can do a 1 to 10, 1 to 0 to 100, or whatever. But it's important because you want to be able to track your progress. If I meet Kiana on the street a week from now and she is excited to see me because she's now 99% sure karma's true, well, there should be a really good reason why she's moved up. Interestingly, she enjoyed that little brief talk that you saw so much, I stumbled across her 20 minutes later, and she ended up dropping her confidence in karma even more. So I do think the belief scale is important because it can help show the progress of a person's confidence in the belief, whether they're moving up or down or staying the same.
I always really like the confidence scale, because if you start out with it in a conversation, you say, okay, how sure of this position are you? And then you you apply the Socratic method and the street epistemology. And then you, at the end of the conversation, ask them, because it's neat, because you can see this transformation in the way that they're thinking about the way that they think about things.
It's in a short amount of time, too. That's the neat thing. Like, within 5 or 10 minutes, somebody can drop from a 100 to a 90. because they're realizing, wow, yeah, I don't have any good, I really don't have a good reason for that. I might even put myself lower, but I'm reluctant to put myself lower because now my ego's coming into play, and there's all these other factors of, well, in fact, she even says, Kiana, during that talk, that during the second time, she says, I can't drop to a 30. I mean, dropping to a 30 after two 10-minute talks, I mean, you can see that she was battling with her own possible embarrassment of holding a belief that was probably not true. So ego's a factor. There's so many interesting things going on. But yes, after somebody gives their position on the belief scale, if you could just ask them, why is that the right number for you? That sparks a whole an amazing discussion and the brain power that's happening to explain why somebody can be so confident in a belief is it's so entertaining, and again, at the end of a talk, people love it. Like this woman in particular came back because she enjoyed the first talk so much, it sounded like, and I'm eager to run into people multiple times so we can see a journey of somebody going from a high level of confidence, for example, to a low level of confidence, or vice versa.
Also, when you talk about percentages, you can ask them what will slide them down the scale, which is often a follow-up question later in the conversation, I've noticed. And I think that's extremely important, because a lot of people know why they believe what they believe, but not a lot of people think about what could falsify that. And that's a big thing within the atheist and skeptic community, that we are always like, how could you know that something is true if you're not willing to think about what might falsify that? Like when you're doing a test and you're trying to experiment on something, the way that we know that one vaccine works over the other is that we don't make excuses for when the other vaccine fails. We know what failure looks like, and we're willing to accept that as negative evidence towards what we believe.
That's so very important. Yeah. Absolutely. That's so very important, to be able to help people identify what they would need to see to know that what they're believing in is not true. That falsifiability, or perhaps a nicer word to use would be testability. How can you test this belief? I ran into a woman this past weekend in Austin. There's the National Day of Prayer, and there was this counter protest, and this wonderful, nice elderly woman came up, and we talked for about 20 minutes. And I kept circling back to how she could know that her belief was not true. And she kept asking me to give the test. How do I test it? How do I test it? Well, no. Why would you ask? Why would you want me, a total stranger, to provide you with a test? Wouldn't this be Wouldn't this be something that you would want to be able to test yourself and figure out? Why would you want to go using my criteria? I do love that. There's some wonderful questions that are extremely simple that you'll see as a prevailing theme throughout most of the videos that I've put out, and you've picked up on one of them there for sure.
Yeah, personally, my favorite question, maybe of all time, but definitely of your videos, is why? Because as soon as you say, okay, the car takes me from A to B, and then I push the gas pedal, and then I turn the wheel and I get there. And then you think, why? And then you say, okay, because the steering works like this and the gas is put there. Okay, why is the gas then put there? And then you can take something from getting to work to a question of, why do atoms function the way they do, by just asking yourself why and following down that rabbit hole, and then applying it to something like faith and belief, or politics, or not to say politics isn't a belief, but applying it to personal opinions.
It's humbling. It's so humbling when somebody says, well, why do you believe that? Sometimes people they can say it really quickly, I believe because of faith. Other times people might say, I've never really been asked why I hold this belief, and that's fascinating too. Even for somebody to verbalize that is quite incredible when you hear that. So yeah, asking why you believe something. Oftentimes, I think, and Michael Shermer goes into this quite a bit, that we might hold beliefs, but we don't know why we're holding them. So when I ask that question, it very well may be the person's brain is looking for reasons to explain the belief that they're holding, and they're not necessarily reasons why they have the belief. They're just looking for excuses for beliefs that they already hold. So this is a fascinating approach, and I absolutely I love doing it. I absolutely love it because it makes me think, and I know that it's making other people think.
And that's the thing about this method that I really appreciate, is that it's self-regulating and you are not exempt. You yourself, the person who's trying to use this technique to question someone else's belief, you are not exempt from being wrong. Like you can, and one of the things that you always say, and it sounds cheap when people first start listening to it, it sounds like a ploy of like, oh, well, I'm willing to change my mind. I want to change my mind if you can prove me right. Or you say it more along the lines of, I want to know if I'm wrong, so that's one of the reasons why I'm, asking, like talking to people. Sure. So I think that's the cool thing about it, is it's very humbling to always be willing to change your mind and always be willing to be proven wrong.
But if I can expand on that, absolutely. Yeah. When I talk to a believer, if Jesus is real and they have a good reason for it, then I want to know about it, because then, maybe I want to believe in that too. But there are many times I have a conversation with somebody and it's evident that they don't have a good reason for holding their belief. At that point, it's pretty certain that I'm not going to change my mind. They're not going to convince me that because they were saved, they lived with their grandmother and they were saved when they were 5. Well, at that point, I'm pretty certain that they're not going to be able to convince me or give me a good reason for why they're believing in it. Mm-hmm. But I do feel that we have an obligation to help our fellow humans, where if we recognize that somebody is probably believing something that's not true, I think we have an obligation to engage with them in a respectful manner, to help them. Mm-hmm. And some people get a little uneasy about that, but I really think that, just be very blunt with you, I think we have an obligation to do that. If somebody is walking around with a belief that is not compatible with reality, then I think we have an obligation to help them figure that out.
Yeah, especially if you want to be humanist or want to have some, adhere to some positive beliefs about, humanity and the way that we want to treat other people.
My question when encountering things like this about like people should know the truth, or like you were saying, if they don't have something that's compatible with reality, they should. It would be nice to show them that maybe that's the case. And when I always see these things, is why then is that the good thing to do? Like, why is it? Why should you show them that their belief isn't compatible, and why not let them live in ignorance?
Well, it's pretty simple, because there's a couple things here. People's beliefs are not in a vacuum, so a decision that somebody makes because they think that something is true, and if it's not true, could actually be harmful to themselves and to others, especially in an era where we live, where there's mass weapons of destruction and that type of thing. These things do affect other people, and I think we want to. If I was holding a belief that wasn't true, I would want to know about it. That's the premise that I embark on whenever I start a conversation with somebody, or if they start a conversation with me. Street epistemology is all about a quest to identify truths. I am not saying that I have the truth and I'm so eager to talk to you because I'm willing to share it with you. No, this is more about humility and saying, I'm not confident in what I believe. There are some things that I'm pretty sure are true, but there are a lot of things that I'm pretty sure are not true or may not be true. I'm willing to change my mind on it. But when we encounter people that are so certain that things are true, things that affect how they vote, what they want to have taught in public schools and so on, then it's even more critical that we engage in a conversation with somebody. What's wrong with having a talk with somebody to help them discover that maybe what they're believing in is not true? I don't see a problem with that at all.
All right, so we're actually about to wrap up. We only have a couple minutes left, but I wanted to ask a couple questions with hopefully some quick answers. This might be a little bit difficult to do, but some people hold their beliefs and they use it to deal with some very, very difficult issues in their life. Either somebody died recently or whatever issue they're having in their life. And sometimes sometimes if they were to have that taken away from them, it would be kind of like kicking the chair out from underneath them. Do you feel that there are some moral issues with sometimes doing this to people?
Absolutely. It's never become more clear to me than just within the last 2 months how potent this Socratic approach of street epistemology is, because within a 5 or 10 minute talk, somebody that is absolutely sure they know that Allah exists, well, by the time they're talking with me, they're probably going to be less confident that that's the case. So there is a small percentage of our population that I do think need these beliefs, even though they're probably not true, to function. I've had people say, Anthony, if I didn't believe in this, I would end up raping and killing anyone that I ever saw. And when somebody makes a declaration like that, I'll back off. I'll find a nice way to gracefully exit and move on. There have been people that have said, I'm very sick. There's a chance I can go to the hospital and I may never come out. Okay, fine, let's talk about something else. Can I take you to lunch or something? So there are some issues. In fact, this is such an important part of street epistemology, is knowing when to not do it. And there are no hard and fast rules. It's really up to you. But Boghossian himself recognized the importance of it, and it's one of the very first quizzes that you'll encounter in his app, is when not to have this type of discussion, because we do recognize that there are some people that probably need to have these beliefs, even though they're probably not true, in order to function in society.
Okay, so we've got about a minute left to talk about how people can get involved. If you could talk a little bit about how people can get involved in street epistemology, and then at the end plug a couple of your social media outlets.
Oh, thank you that'd be great. Well, there's the streetepistemology.com website. It's being revamped, but ultimately it will be a community portal for anyone, whether you're a believer or a non-believer. If you have any interest or a hatred for street epistemology, that would be the place to go to find every little bit of information about it. Books, videos, apps, etc. There is, right now, the best place I think you could probably go would be the private Street Epistemology Facebook group. Go ahead and submit a join request, and you can be in contact with, I think we're closing in on 3,000 members there, where there are people that are having these conversations near daily, posting their successes and failures, and then you can observe that. And if you're preparing for a big talk with a loved one or something, you can give the background of what you're worried about, what the talk might be about, and get feedback from people. So that would be a great place to go. And then if you're interested in following me, I've got a YouTube channel, which is Magnabosco 210, and a Twitter channel, which is just my last name, Magnabosco.
All right. Thank you so much. It was really great to have you on, and if you want, you can stick around after the show and we can chat a little bit more.
Oh, I'd love that. That'd be great.